Hello and welcome to this session on flipped classroom, or also known as reverse instruction. My name is John Sowash, and I am excited to be able to share some of the things that I've learned through this method of instruction. I hope it will be valuable to both you and your students and provide you with an additional method of instruction that will help them master the content that you wish for them to grasp. I am a class teacher at Southfield Christian School, just outside of Detroit, Michigan. I teach high school life science, biology, anatomy, physiology, AP Bio, and have used the flipped classroom or reverse instruction model in my anatomy and physiology course with students in grades 10 through 12. I'm happy to share some of those experiences with you as we go through this presentation. You're welcome to connect with me on the web, either via Twitter, via my email address, which you can see there, or on my blog. At the end of this session, I will give you the link to this presentation, and it will contain all of the links that you see here. Everything that's underlined, you can click on. It will take you directly to that resource. So again, I'll share that with you at the end of the presentation. First of all, let's talk about the traditional classroom before we get into the reverse instruction. In a traditional classroom, typically what happens is the teacher or professor lectures during class. There's a large group of students. The teacher stands up front, perhaps throws up a few PowerPoint slides, writes on a chalkboard or dry erase board, and tries to share his or her knowledge with the students in the classroom. During the lecture, there are probably some practice problems that are done or some scenarios that are discussed. Very typical, especially in a science or math type classroom. At the end of the lecture, the professor typically assigns some homework for the student to accomplish during the evening to reinforce whatever was discussed during class. Most students go home and don't do them right away, but do other things and probably don't pull out the homework until the absolute last moment. Unfortunately, by that time, they have probably forgotten the practice problems that were explained during class. The student tries to do the homework, works on it for a while, becomes frustrated, gives up, puts down the wrong answer, or thinks they have the right answer but really don't. In any case, they have not mastered the concept that the instructor was desiring them to master. Back to class, the professor, instructor probably asks if there are any questions, maybe fields one or two, perhaps goes over a couple of practice problems, collects the homework from the previous day's work, and says, okay, class, we need to move on to the next topic. For the majority of the students in this class, they have not mastered the topic. Many of them are completely clueless, and only a very small percentage of the class understands as intended. This is the traditional model of instruction, and there are a few inherent problems with it. First of all, class periods are too short. This is true no matter how well you plan out your lessons. I know for me, 50 minutes or 47 minutes is just not enough time to get everything across that you would like to share all the examples that you would like, to do all the practice problems that you would like. Secondly, there's never enough time for student questions. I typically pack my class full with lectures, with examples, and slides, and questions, and things like that, that I don't have time to field questions generated by the students. Next, there's never enough time to help individual students. Because we're so busy lecturing, taking attendance, answering a few questions from the larger group, there's never enough time to help the individual students to figure out which student is really struggling and to guide information around their mental roadblocks. When students go home or to their dorm to do their practice problems and they can't remember, there's rarely the support that's needed for them to move past the roadblocks that they're experiencing. You are not there to help guide them through the challenges. Finally, the homework that is assigned typically does not lead to subject mastery. It's rushed through, it's not focused on, it's done too far after the instruction is given, it's done poorly. In any case, it rarely leads to greater student understanding. So, an alternative to this method of instruction is called reverse instruction or flipped classroom teaching. The originators of this idea are two high school chemistry teachers from Colorado named Aaron Sams and Jonathan Bergman. I'll share a little bit more about them towards the end of the presentation. In the flipped classroom, it is just like it sounds. We are going to completely reverse the method of instruction. Homework is going to be done in class, and lecture is going to be watched at home. The class time is reserved for helping individual students, answering student questions, or doing more hands-on interactive work. This arrangement flips the traditional model of instruction by assigning lectures as homework and doing homework in class. So, how would you get started with this method of instruction? The first thing that you need to do is to pre-record your lectures. Video is always more desirable than audio, but in any case, you need to pre-record your lessons or your lectures and then post them in a location that students can easily access. Two very easy places would be YouTube and iTunes. YouTube is very easy to upload video to. It's very reliable, very fast. People know how to use it, so it's my favorite resource. It also is completely free of charge. You don't have to pay for any hosting fees or anything. iTunes is also an excellent option. It's a little more technical to get it set up, and it does require that you host your audio or video files somewhere on the web so that people can pull them from YouTube. This would allow students to download their lectures to their iPods, iPhones, iPads, and watch them on demand wherever they wish. I would suggest that you break up your lectures into small chunks, typically 5 to 10 minutes. This can be difficult to do. I would recommend taking your 60-minute lecture and just finding some natural breaks in your lecture and cutting it there and say, lecture on this topic, part 1, part 2, or maybe give it subnames depending on what you're talking about. I'd also recommend that you provide some type of guided lecture note for students to follow along as they view your lecture. This keeps them engaged and gives them a written record of what they watched and gets them kinesthetically involved. After you've recorded your lectures and posted them, it's time to announce this new method of instruction to your students. It's very important that they understand why you are doing this method of instruction, to free up class time to answer their questions and ultimately to help them better master the subject that you're teaching them. If you do not adequately explain this to your students, they will fail to watch the lectures, they won't see the importance of it, or they'll just be lazy and not do it. It's important to encourage them to watch these lectures and illustrate or explain to them why it is important. Make sure they understand how they're going to be assessed on this lecture material, either via a test or some type of lecture check, or on the next test. Students are going from a very passive form of learning, sitting in class and listening to lectures, to a much more active and difficult form of learning. They have to take the initiative to watch the lectures and take notes on their own. And then when they come to class, instead of just sitting there and listening, they're actually going to be participating and engaged in activities that you design for them. So this is a big change for students, just as it is for instructors. And you really need to convey the importance of this and why you are doing it. Once you've recorded your lectures, you also need to plan on what you're going to be doing in class now that you're not going to be lecturing. This is the part that I struggled with the most. I spent all my time and energy preparing my lecture notes and recording my lectures, and I ran out of time and didn't prepare adequately for class. And so we pretty much just sat there and looked at each other. Or we would end up going back over the lecture notes, which didn't make any sense since we'd already done that. So make sure you plan some engaging, interactive activities that really help your students grasp the concepts that you're trying to get across to them. For science teachers, this is great because we can do labs. For math teachers, you can do more practice problems. And for other disciplines, you can have class discussions, debates, things of that nature. Finally, make sure you seek student feedback, not just at the end of your course, but regularly, perhaps even every week, to see, is this method of instruction working out for you? Do you like this? Do you think you're learning more because of it? We're not doing this because we have nothing better to do. We're doing this because we think it's going to help student achievement. Now, does this method of instruction work? There is no scientific data that shows that this method of instruction is necessarily better than some other form or the traditional method of instruction. There's some anecdotal reports from teachers who say, when I started this, I saw an immediate 4 to 6% jump in my test scores or something like that, but really nothing that points to, an overarching proof that, yes, this is an effective method of instruction. Aaron Sams and Jonathan Bergman, the founders of this idea, are currently writing a book on the topic, which I expect will be published probably within the year. And I would guess that at that time they would publish some scientific studies related to this method of instruction. At the end of this presentation, I'll also share with you a research study that was done on students listening to pre-recorded lectures. And you can look that up as it is a related study. Helpful hints that will help you be successful. First of all, I would recommend the use of Google Docs for sharing your lecture notes. When I started this, I did not even record audio or video. I actually just uploaded my lecture notes to Google Docs and then shared those presentations with my students. They just flipped through the slides, wrote down, and completed the lecture notes, and that was it. I've started to collect a library of videos in which I go through these lecture notes and give examples and kind of narrate as we go along. But Google Docs is a great way of sharing these because it's easy to embed on the web. And my favorite part is if I ever change my notes, add some more examples, update it so that it's accurate, I don't have to go around the web and update every single place that I've uploaded this file. There's only one copy of this file, and then I embed it into various web pages. And so it saves me a lot of time and hassle and worry about, is the correct version of this file uploaded here, or is that the old version? So Google Docs is great for that reason. I would encourage you to do random note checks. I discussed this a little bit already, but hold your students accountable to the lectures. Students have a lot going on, and they probably are not going to listen or watch these unless they're going to be held accountable. That could be through daily note checks, random note checks, or you just say, this is all on the test. If you don't listen, you're on your own. Be aware of technical trouble. There's nothing more frustrating for a student than to not be able to watch a video or download a file or access something they thought they should be able to access. So you really need to be careful and work out the kinks ahead of time, make sure students have access to all the resources that you're preparing, and that there's nothing preventing them from doing these activities. In my case, because I work at a secondary school, YouTube is blocked. So I had to go and find a different solution. That's one reason that I just upload my presentations as Google Docs. Students could access the docs at school and YouTube at home, and that seemed to work fairly well. You also need to be prepared for students who don't have reliable internet connection or slow internet or no internet. There's a couple things you can do for them. You could download your lecture notes or PowerPoint slides onto a CD or a flash drive. I even heard of teachers giving old iPods or MP3 players of any kind to students with the lectures pre-recorded on there. So there's some things that you can do, but just make sure that you consider these issues. I'd also strongly encourage you to create a web portal where students can access all the information for the course. You probably already have this if you're using Blackboard or some other class page, but just post all your lecture notes, all your videos, handouts, so that they can just go one place and find everything that they need. Make sure you plan out your class time wisely. I've mentioned this before. It's the part that I've struggled with the most. What labs you're going to do in the class period that you're no longer lecturing. What types of activities or class discussions. There's nothing worse than coming to class, sitting there, and just looking at each other, or just reviewing your notes again, or something like that. So make sure you plan out your class time carefully. Here's some people that you might want to connect with to learn more about the flipped classroom. I've already mentioned Jonathan Bergman and Aaron Sams a couple of times. You can see their blogs and Twitter addresses listed there. Bergman especially is very helpful and willing to answer questions related to this method of instruction. I've talked to him on many occasions. The other two teachers, Willie and Bennett, are just teachers who have also adapted this. Most of these teachers are science teachers, believe it or not. Because of our labs, we really covet that face-to-face class time. So this is a very attractive method of instruction for science teachers. Here's the research study I mentioned earlier on student downloads of pre-recorded lectures. This is from the Journal of College Science Teaching from January and February of 2009. And it gives a lot of data related to how many students listened to the lectures, how long did they listen, what times of the year did they listen, and not surprisingly, lecture downloads spiked during exam time. So that's definitely a useful resource worth checking out. You can also look at the Teacher Vodcasting Network. Vodcasting is just video casting, kind of like podcasting only with video. This social network has over 600 members. It was started by Aaron Sams and John Bergman. And it's just a place for teachers to come and ask questions and discuss this method of instruction, share resources. So it'll be a great place for you to check out. Sams and Bergman have put together a website hosted by the University of Northern Colorado on flipped classroom or reverse instruction that you might want to check out as well. If you're a Twitter user, there are two hashtags which teachers are using to discuss this method of instruction, RevLearn and flipped class. If you just search for those terms, you'll see the discussion surrounding this method of instruction. Some very helpful tools that you will appreciate as you create your lectures would include the products from TechSmith. They're a great software company. They make two very excellent software titles. The first is Camtasia Studio. It is a screen capture recording software that allows you to record whatever is happening on your screen, and then to edit those recordings so that you can zoom into a particular part of the screen, you can annotate things, you can put a box around things, you can type over it. A lot of really cool things you can do with Camtasia. I use it regularly. It's excellent. They also make a software program called Snagit, which is a screen capture program that allows you to essentially take a picture of a portion of your screen, which can be very useful if you're trying to show students a particular menu option or something. This is how I've created a lot of the screen capture images that I've embedded in my presentation. TechSmith also makes Jing, which is a web-based or cloud-based screen capture tool. It is not installed on your local machine, but rather lives in the cloud, and you can access it from anywhere. The videos you create using Jing are uploaded to TechSmith's website, screencast.com, where you can share them with other users. Jing is free. It is ad-supported. Both Snagit and Camtasia are paid software titles. I've already mentioned Google Docs, which is very useful in sharing files with your students. And if you do a lot of writing or annotating, especially from math and science teachers with mathematical symbols, chemical formulas, things like that, I would highly recommend a writing tablet and pen. Just make your life a lot easier and your recorded lectures a lot more interesting and easy to create. For your website, class portal, I would recommend Google Sites, Wikispaces, or WordPress. All of them are excellent. They're all free or have free versions, but you can create a web page for your students to post lecture notes and videos, etc. It's been a pleasure to share this method of instruction with you. I'm certainly no expert, just trying to figure out ways that I can help my students learn more effectively and meet their needs. And it's been challenging for me to implement. I won't say otherwise, but I think it really does match up well with the demands students have and the demands that are put on us as teachers and professors. So I think it's logical and really will help students if it's well implemented. Please feel free to reach out to me via Twitter or my email, or you can check out my blog, which I post occasionally about the flipped classroom. Love to hear from you and journey with you on this adventure and share any other resources that might be helpful. As promised, I'll share the resource for this actual slide deck. You can access this presentation at bit.ly/flipclass, and all the links that you see will be live. You can click on them and be taken to the various blogs and websites, so I'd encourage you to do that. Again, it's been a pleasure sharing this with you. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. I wish you very good success as you try to flip your classroom.